Hey guys, what's up? My name is Jordan Arell, and today on my daily video on circumcision, I would like to talk about how it's really important to both understand first your truth about circumcision and then to speak that truth. So the first step here is really knowing what circumcision is, that it's the amputation of the foreskin, the most sensitive skin on a male's body, important for much sexual function, extremely painful to mutilate a child's genitals is what it is. Let's be clear. And there's no reason for doing it. There's absolutely no medical benefits. If you really look at the research, there's nothing. And so we only do this in the United States. We don't really do it anywhere else. It's there's no reason a man can't decide for himself when he's an adult. It's not cleaner any more than a woman's vagina is clean by circumcising it, which actually has more of the smegma that penises have. So the hygiene is totally bogus. You just wash it in the water. Other things, circumcision is normal, it's healthy, it feels really good, it serves a lot of functions, and it feels really fucking good, guys. So anyways, those are the facts about circumcision. It's first understanding those. Then how does that make you feel, knowing that children are having their genitals amputated for no reason? That's probably not going to feel very good. And this can be a really hard step for some people, is really being honest that this is kind of the worst thing that you can possibly do, is to amputate the best parts of a kid's dick. Like, it's the same as female genital mutilation. We know how we feel about that. And so it's really telling that truth to yourself, letting yourself have the reaction you have. And then, quite simply speaking that, saying, okay, we're doing this, we're cutting children's genitals off. So how, when someone says, oh yeah, I'm going to circumcise my kid, or I think circumcision's great, or it's good, or, foreskin's gross, so we should just do it. All these very stupid surface level nonsensical reasons that we tell ourselves to perpetuate this. How do you respond to that? It's not easy, I will say, when you first start, especially to reply to someone who's telling you they think like genital mutilation is a good thing, whether it's male or female. Our culture, it happens to be male, but they say the exact same things in female genital cutting cultures, so this really applies to both. But anyways, how do you respond to those claims? To me, it's quite simple. You just be very honest about how you feel about it. You don't have to be aggressive. You don't have to force them to agree with you, because that doesn't really work anyways. What you have to do is simply be honest and not waver in your opinion. So when the issue comes up, you say, actually, I think circumcision is a really bad thing. Explain foreskin is the most sensitive part of the penis. It's very violent and painful for the baby to cut it off, and there's no really reason for doing it. I think the boy should have his own decision of whether or not he wants to amputate part of his penis when he's old enough to decide for himself. I don't think parents need to make that decision for him for any reason. That's absurd. Why would parents decide whether or not to cut off part of a child's body for no reason? There's no fucking reason for doing this. Sorry, I'm getting worked up here. Anyways, you get the point. You just explain these very basic facts. You explain the fact that there's no reason to do it. There's no need to do it. And he may very well want to keep his whole penis. I like to use that phrase, something like that, to that effect, because that's the truth of what's happening here. You're cutting off part of a baby's penis without his consent. Consent is another great word to use. The fact is, there is no consent. We understand that in our culture around sexual activity with an adult, but somehow we don't get that children should also have consent before having part of their genitals removed. It's just so common sense, and it's continuing to really repeat these phrases over and over, and be clear about the truth of what is happening. Be that truth. Anytime someone says, "Oh yeah, but I mean, I guess it's good, but it's probably cleaner," say, well, "No, actually, it's not cleaner," and then explain why. Female genitalia has 4 times as much smegma. And that's one of the reasons they give for cutting it off is because it's dirty. So that's really not a good argument. Very simple. You just have to have the balls, have the guts, to the ovaries if you're a lady and activist, thumbs up to you, to just say circumcision is wrong. I believe it's one of the worst things you can actually do. It's also great to speak your own personal experience. People will often ask you your story. Just be honest. Well, I discovered this because of whatever at what age, and I immediately was shocked by it. I hated it, and the more I learned about it, as I did more and more research, I just kept getting more and more upset because it's so horrifying. It's one of the worst things I can imagine happening to me or anybody. And yeah, actually I developed pretty severe PTSD from it. I had trouble sleeping at night because I'd be experiencing it over and over and over and over again after watching videos of it and being able to feel that. I felt like I could remember it in my body, etc., etc. Just telling your story. What's your day-to-day experience? Do you not enjoy sex anymore? Are you asexual? I've certainly gone through / going through all those things. How does it affect your relationship with your parents? How does it affect your relationship with your significant other? How does it affect your relationships with friends? How do you feel about it socially? Do you have anxiety about your body or feel shame for it? Go into that. Go into any of those topics that feels right for you, that's really hot for you and affects you a lot, and actually be willing to be vulnerable to explain. The more you process and do healing work around this, that can also really help to be able to speak about it more freely and more easily. On the other hand, speaking about it can be therapeutic in itself, so I'd really highly recommend to anybody, just say exactly how you feel, exactly how this affects you. You can tell them all the details and the facts about it, but personal experience can often be much more persuasive in some ways, especially for people who it's really hard to get through their shield of like, no, circumcision, I think it's a good thing. You can just really tell them your experience of it, and I think people tend to have a lot more empathy on the personal level rather than the factual level of why conceptually it's bad. People can argue back and forth about facts and how it affects different things all day, but when you talk about your own emotional experience and how it's made you depressed, and how there's a lot of men who are actually really, really depressed and upset about this, and you can't really argue with that. It's a fact of experience that's really horrible, and you never know what man is going to grow up to hate it as much as an increasing number of men do. So those are a few different ways of speaking your truth. First, really understanding how you feel about this, doing the research and getting the facts on it, and then sharing those facts with people whenever someone says something that's not quite right. Aren't there medical benefits? No. I mean, when you compare our rates of any of those diseases with other countries around the world who don't cut off parts of their children's genitals, they actually are about the same. So it's definitely not that. And again, with any facts, it's simply sharing the counterfact and not being afraid to argue your point whenever someone's trying to make a factual argument that it's better. But then it's also understanding your own truth, your own experience, and speaking that and being totally honest about that. And yeah, finally, if doing your own healing work helps you to do that, great. I would highly recommend that. I have videos every day on that as well. And you know, in the end, it's all about just being truthful, being honest. I think that's really the important thing around this topic, because if we understand that this is the truth, it is simply the facts, the more people know about this, studies have shown, the more they are against it. People just don't know the facts. They don't know that people experience pain around this. They don't understand it. And so if we just keep saying that over and over and over again, every time it comes up, and there's also, by the way, there's ways to bring it into conversation, such as people ask you what you do, you can say, well, I have a podcast, or I do activism around this issue, or whatever involvement you have with it. You know, it's a great question to, like, what else do you do? Or what do you do with your time? Or what's your hobby? I answer pretty much all those questions with this. And then just, again, it's so simple. You don't have to be aggressive with it. You can just use the word circumcision rather than genital mutilation, until you kind of get to that point in the conversation. Just gradually escalate, telling them the simple facts, being honest, being vulnerable, until they get why this issue is so important to you and why it should be important to them too. If we keep spreading these facts, these understandings, the truth about circumcision, we will win this fight. I promise you that. And yeah, really excited for that day. So thanks everybody for watching this video, and as always, I will talk to you again tomorrow.